Hello, my name is Jullien Gordon. I'm founder of the Freedom School, and I want to share with you a framework that I've been using in my own life to actually manage and automate my own money towards financial freedom. And it's called the Cashflow framework, and I hope that it blesses you. I want you to know that this is not financial advice. I am not a certified financial planner, but this has worked for me, and I just want to share it with you in hopes that it blesses you and your family. Now, this framework is based on a couple key principles that I have discovered and have baked into the design of this framework in terms of how I manage my own money. So the first is that cash is not king. I know you've probably heard that cash is king, but it's actually not. See, on a chessboard, queen is the most powerful piece, and assets are actually queen. Then cash flow is king. And when a queen and a king get together, they produce pawns, which is cash. Now, in chess, you would happily sacrifice pawns to acquire another queen. In the same way, cash is not king, cash is actually pawn. What you really want is assets. So assets over everything. The second principle is that the poverty mindset is I'm too broke to invest, whereas the wealthy mindset is I invest until I'm broke. Even if you only have $10 extra a month to put into an investment, you can do that. You may not even be able to afford an entire share of the stock that you want, but you can still get $10 worth of that share because it's all about percentages. You don't have to have $1,800 to buy Amazon stock right now. You can go get $100 worth of Amazon stock. Okay. So wherever you are, no matter how much money you have, you can be investing. Okay. Again, remember, you do not want to hold cash. Cash is the lowest yielding financial asset there is in the entire world. Cash is the lowest yielding financial asset there is in the entire world. The typical savings account is yielding about 0.03%. Okay, 0.03%. Now, according to the rule of 72, you take 72 and divide it by the actual percent, and that'll tell you how long it takes to double your money. So 72 divided by 10, let's say your interest rate was 10%, you were earning 10% on some sort of asset each year, it would take you 7.2 years to double your money. But at 0.03%, not 3%, 0.03% for the average savings account, it would take you 2,400 years to double your money. Okay, so cash is the lowest yielding asset there is. At the end of the day, we are all still picking cotton because cash is 75% cotton. It's no longer backed by gold. Nixon took us off the gold standard, so it's really worthless piece of paper. And with inflation, it gets less and less valuable over time. Okay, so the third principle is that you want to grow your equity, not just your hourly. What did Beyonce say? Pay me in equity, right? 50 cents. Instead of getting paid $200,000 to do a vitamin water commercial, he took 10% of the company, and then that company went on to sell to Coca-Cola for $2 billion, right? So you want to grow your equity, not just your hourly. I want you to grow both, but you want to grow your equity, not just your hourly. You want a pipeline of passive income. That's actually what's going to lead you to freedom, not just a pile of money created from active income. And that's how most people approach retirement. They try to stack up this big pile so that once they retire at 65, even though the average life expectancy is only like 76 or something like that, they're retiring off this big pile for 11 years. I'm not giving up 40 plus years of my life to actually only enjoy 10 or 11 on the back end. Okay. So you want to grow your equity, not just your hourly, and you want a pipeline of passive income that is not you selling your time for money versus creating a big pile of money from active income. Okay. Then the fourth principle is that your salary is not your income. Of course, that's what they say, and they call it your income statement, right? But when you look at a business, the revenue for the equation for income is revenue minus expenses equals income. So for an individual, your salary is actually your revenues. Then you have your living expenses, and then what's left over at the end of the month is your actual income. But whereas you want more money left over at the end of the month, many Americans have more month left over at the end of the money. Right? This is why so many people, about 78% of Americans, are living paycheck to paycheck because they've been taught that their salary is their income, but that's not the case. Your salary is not your income. Your salary is only your revenues. So two people with the same salary could have completely different incomes based on their cost of living. A person could have a salary of $60,000, another one have $60,000. This one lives off of 40. This one lives off of 55. This person has a $5,000 income. This person has a $20,000 income. So remember that your salary is not your income. It is just your revenues. And then finally, you can't save your way to wealth. I already shared with you the rule of 72. It would take you 2,400 years to double your money, okay, putting your money in a savings account. Whereas if you had gold, you need a bank, right? But in this case, in this day and age, you do not need a bank to protect your money. You actually don't want your money to be liquid. You want it to actually be in assets. So I'm going to show you how I do that using the cash flow framework. So the cash flow framework is actually based on a methodology that I created. You probably remember PEMDAS, the order of operations from elementary school, right? What is it? Parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, add, and subtract. That might be great for academic math. It is not great for millionaire math. And so this is what the framework that I use is called SDAME. So anytime we're looking at our money, we want to first subtract, which is reducing your expenses by downsizing and releasing nice to haves for now. Then you want to go into dividing, which is budgeting whatever you bring in monthly, including savings, starting with your emergency fund. Then you want to go into adding. How do you add new revenue streams? By increasing your value at work or developing a side hustle or starting a business. Then we go into multiplying, which is investing in assets where your money is working for you without being dependent on your time to grow it. And then finally is exponential, which is you invest a portion of your savings into potentially high yielding ideas and assets like a startup company. So this is millionaire math. What you were taught in elementary school was academic math. This is actual millionaire math. So you'll see the color coding throughout the framework to help you know what stage you're actually in. Okay. So again, anybody can start the cash flow framework. And as you advance, you'll get all the way to the end, which is the ultimate goal. And the ultimate goal is financial freedom. And financial freedom is the moment when your passive income, your passive streams of income from a multifamily home, a dividend yielding company or stock is actually greater than 1 month of your living expenses. Okay. We call those operating expenses in business. And I want you to start thinking like a business. As Jay-Z said, I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman. So your operating expenses is literally your monthly budget, how much you spend per month, almost automatically, no matter what. So financial freedom is when your passive streams of income actually are greater than your living expenses or your operating expenses. Okay. And I was able to achieve this at the age of 35 using the principles that I'm going to share with you right now. Okay. So the first stage of the cash flow framework is actually some sort of cash pot. And this is not a real cash pot, but we just want to aggregate all of the cash that you have in one single pot. This is your current checking account. This is your savings account. And typically this is going to be an accessible bank. Number one, accessible means that it's probably a national bank that has ATMs on every other corner where you can access your money. Okay, this is personal checking account number one. So when you take all of the cash you have in different places, this is your cash pot. Okay, so that's where we want to start. Then from there, you want to create another checking account number two. Okay, and this is your operating expenses. And in this checking account, you literally want to have only 2 months of operating expenses, 2 months of living expenses, 2 months of rent, cell phone, car note, insurances, food, etc. This is your operating expense account or OpEx. And so this is still an accessible bank number one, but it's a separate checking account from this cash pot because ultimately we won't need this cash pot in a second. Okay. And so you're only putting 2 months of living expenses. So if your living expenses are $4,000 a month, then you want to keep $8,000 in this account. And the only reason I put a second month on there is because what I want is if one of your debit cards like expires or something, I don't want you to miss an automated payment just because your debit card expired. I don't want you to be cutting it so close. So you only put 2 months of expenses in this operating account. Okay. So that's step number one. Step number two is creating a sacred stash. This is your investment account. This is for future assets and revenue. Now, keep in mind, you want your checking account and your savings accounts to be at separate banks, right? They should not be at the same bank. Otherwise, they will easily bleed into one another. Some people like the convenience of seeing everything in one place, but that's actually dangerous because just like a refrigerator, right? If there's food in the refrigerator and you're not even hungry, what happens? It gets eaten, right? And so what gets seen gets spent. So you want it out of sight, out of mind so that you don't spend it, right? So this is key to this process is actually moving your money into what I call inaccessible bank number two. This is your second bank, but this is a bank that is actually inaccessible. This is maybe a credit union. For me, I live in New York, but my bank where I have this sacred stash is actually all the way in California, okay? So this is our first savings account that we've created, but it is at an inaccessible bank number two. This is your sacred stash. This is for future investments and revenue, right? So it's like a holding place. We're not into savings. I already shared with you the key principles. Savings, you can't save your way to wealth. This is kind of just, it's called a temporary savings because all we're doing is holding it there. We don't care what their interest rate is whatsoever because that's not popping off right now. What we are doing is allocating that money and setting it aside for a future investment that's going to have a higher yield, okay? So from your cash pot, you want to make a direct deposit automatically to your sacred stash. You want that to actually come off top. This is a sacred, right? You want that to come off top. In the same way that a church may ask for a tithe, right? And they want 10% off top, no matter what you're going through. We're doing this for your financial freedom as well. Freedom is your birthright. You are meant to live in an abundance. And so this is a key step that most people, they put it as the last step, but it should actually be the first step. So I want at least 5% of your cash pot, no matter what. And any true profit after your emergency fund is filled, and any 50% match from your fund expense, which I'm going to share with you in a second. So 5% of your cash pot, no matter what. So if your cash pot was $10,000, 5% of that is $500 is automatically going to your sacred stash right away. You're putting in your sacred stash right away. And then we're going to get into true profit in just a second, right? After your emergency fund is filled, that will go into your sacred stash. And then 50%, a 50-50 match for any fund expense. And I'm going to explain that in just a second. Okay. So that is step 2, is creating the sacred stash account in a bank that is inaccessible. Okay. This is your first savings account. Okay. Step number 3 is your primary stream. You want to make sure that your primary stream is going into the cash pot. And this is usually your paycheck after taxes. This is your paycheck after taxes. Remember, your salary is not income, it is revenue. So that goes to the cash pot, and then it gets direct deposited into your operating expense and allocated to your sacred stash automatically, 5% of that. Okay. Let's say you're only making $1,000 a month every 2 weeks, right? Then 50 of that is automatically going to your sacred stash. Okay. The other will pass through your operating expense. So that's step number 3. Step number 4 is creating another savings account. It's also an inaccessible savings account, but this is your third bank now. Okay. So you have your accessible national bank with ATMs all over. Then you have your sacred stash, which is in some bank that is inaccessible that you don't have access to, right? And that has a savings account. That's your first savings account. Now we're doing inaccessible bank number 3. This is your third bank. This one's inaccessible, right? And you will have a permanent savings account here. Notice that the sacred stash is temporary. We're not trying to save our way to wealth here. This is a permanent savings account, and this is your emergency fund. And your emergency fund will actually be based on your risk tolerance. Some people only need a 3-month emergency fund, and they're like, you know what? I know my value. I know my skills. If I lose it all, I can actually get back on my feet in less than 3 months, right? Some people need a 12-month emergency fund. It all depends on your risk tolerance. So you want to add your true profit to the emergency fund until we fill this account up. Okay. So your true profit, what is your true profit? It's your paycheck after taxes. Okay. What you actually get minus your living expenses for that month. Right. So your paycheck, let's say again, 1,000, somebody's making 1,000 every 2 weeks. I know that's not a lot of money, but just for the sake of numbers, 1,000 every 2 weeks, their cost of living is $800. So their true profit is $200. Okay. So they're going to have to put $200 into this emergency fund. Right. If their living expenses is $800, that's going to take them 4 months to get up to 1 month of living expenses. And it'll take them a year to get up to 3 months of living expenses. It'll take them a year of putting $200 into that account to get up to $2,400. And if their living expenses are $800, then that will cover 3 months of living expenses. So you fill up the emergency fund until it's full. And then once that's full, then the money will bypass the emergency fund and go straight to sacred stash and to these other accounts that I'm going to show you. Okay. So you have to know what your true profit is. Your income, right? What they call your income is not your true income. We're talking about your true profit. You as an individual have true profit, and that is what's left over at the end of the month after taxes, insurances, and all of your living expenses. Okay. So we're going to fill up the emergency fund to however high you need it to feel safe and secure. So step number 5, now that the emergency fund is filled up. Now, keep in mind, when the emergency fund is being filled, you're still sending that 5% to the sacred stash no matter what. You're still sending that 5% to the sacred stash. So in fact, you're not actually putting 200 into the emergency fund. You're actually only putting in 150 because 50 is actually going to the sacred stash no matter what. Okay. So step number 5 is your fund. Your fund. I don't want you to just be saving and be such a Scrooge that you don't get to enjoy life here and now. This is the problem with some of the structures and savings plans that are out there. People just want you to live in a cardboard box and not do anything and never travel. And I don't want you to live like that. So we are actually going to create a fund. Okay. Now your fund is in inaccessible bank number 2. It's the same bank as your sacred stash. Okay. But whereas your sacred stash is for investment, your fund is for enjoyment. Your sacred stash is for investment, and your fund is for enjoyment. Okay. Now, this is where future liabilities and expenses are going to occur. Throughout life, we're going to have liabilities and expenses. I wish we could navigate and never have any liabilities or expenses, but we will. And oftentimes, a lot of the things that are fun are an expense. A vacation is an expense, right? Sometimes a car is a liability. You don't necessarily need that car. You could just go buy it cash and have it, but it's still a liability because money is coming out of your pocket. So here's the deal. You create the fund, right? It's also in inaccessible bank number 2. Now, anytime you are drawing from the fund, you also have to put money to match it in your sacred stash. So let's say you want to go on a $1,000 vacation. That's fine. Enjoy the vacation, but you can only go on that vacation if you also put $1,000 going towards your future. So, because that $1,000 on the vacation, that's going and it's gone forever. It's gone to Sandals or Marriott, wherever. It's gone to the airline company. You'll never see that money again. So if we are going to access some of our money now, we also want to plant a seed for the future so that we can eat in the future. So there has to be what I call a 50-50 match. If you're going to buy a furniture set for $2,000, that's great. Go ahead and do it, but also make sure that you're planting $2,000 into your sacred stash as well at the same time. So your fund should have a series of things in it. It doesn't have to have, but it should have a series of things in it that have a specific number, okay? So that could be a specific number for the down payment on a single family home. It could be the specific number to buy a car that you want. It could be the specific number for a vacation. It could be the specific number for a furniture set, okay? So your fund is actually gonna have a specific number or goal in it, okay? Again, if all those things total up to be $10,000 and you're ready to access that money, it also has to be added to the sacred stash as well to match, okay? If we're going to reap now, we also want to plant for the future at the same time, okay? So you see here your operating expenses, that's money out of the door, that's monthly expenses. You'll never see that again. And usually these things that you buy from your fund are one-time expenses, and that money is gone. You don't get it back because you didn't invest in an asset, you invested in an expense or a liability, okay? So that's the account number 5. It's in the same bank as your sacred stash, but this is temporary savings number 1, and this is temporary savings number 3. This is savings account 1, this is savings 2, but this is permanent, this is temporary. And again, this is temporary because you're only holding it here until you meet your goal to buy that single family home, to buy that car, to go on that vacation, or to buy furniture, okay? And again, I just have to remind you, anything that goes into the fund must be matched in the sacred stash. If you spend $1,000 on a couch, $1,000 must also go into your sacred stash. I just want that to be crystal clear, okay? So next is step 6. Now you've got this part flowing and you're like, wow, my true profit is actually low. And so I want to add more money to the cash pot. And this is typically where people come up with a side hustle, right? Or they try to do some Uber driving, or they try to do an Airbnb. Okay, so this is for more immediate cash to add to your monthly cash flow and increase your true profit. Now, you got to be very mindful. Like, for instance, if you were going to do Uber, you might be getting paid and you see numbers increasing, but if your gas and maintenance costs also go up, then your true profit won't go up. So you have to be very mindful. So the easiest side hustle to usually start is one that is related to a skill that you're already selling to your employer. Your employer is buying a skill that solves a problem. Every job in the world is designed to solve a problem, and you've been hired because you have some skill set that actually solves that problem. The easiest side hustle to create is not one that's way over here in left field. It's one that actually leverages the existing skills that you've been developing and selling to your employer for wholesale prices, like Costco, right? The reason they're getting it at wholesale prices is because they're buying your time in bulk, right? That's what a salary is. They're buying your time in bulk. And when you buy ketchup in bulk at Costco, from a volume standpoint, you get it for a lot cheaper. Whereas when you're using that same skill as a side hustle, you can charge double to triple what you actually are charging your employer, okay? So that's usually the best type of side hustle to start. So this is your secondary stream, and the goal is to increase your true profit so that we can put more money into your sacred stash, fill up your emergency fund faster, put more money into your sacred stash, and also create more possibility for fun, okay? So that is your secondary stream of income. You have your primary, which is typically for most people, it's their job, and then you have a secondary, okay? Now, step 7 is to create another stream of income, right? We are adding. Remember, the pink here is adding. We have the yellow, which is subtracting. We have the orange, which is dividing. Then we have pink, which is adding. And then we have or blue, which is multiplying. And then we have exponent, which is the green. So now you've been doing a side hustle, but the side hustle wasn't really a career. It was just something you were doing to make immediate cash. Now you want to start a legitimate business. And so you're going to start a business account. You're going to go get an LLC or S Corp, and you're going to start a business account in Accessible Bank number 1, right? But it's going to be a business checking account. So you'll need an EIN or a tax ID number to open that bank account. So you have to apply for your LLC or your S Corp first. Okay. Now, the business that you create, you want that to add income so that your true profit increases, or you want to start to multiply money at this stage. Okay. And so this is not so much about immediate cash. I want your business to make immediate cash, but usually it takes businesses time to ramp up. So this is more for your passion and to create equity. Right? It's to create equity. See, when you go create a $1 million idea for your employer, you don't have any equity in that company. So all they do is continue to pay you your salary. And in many cases, a salary is slavery, right? A salary is slavery in many cases because you don't benefit in the upside. All you get is this flat rate. And when they have you on salary, they can work you 50, 60, 70 hours a week. And the longer you work, the more your average hourly rate is going down. When people have you on salary, they think they own you. So you got to be very careful. Okay. So what you want to do, you see this arrow down here, any income that you make in your business, you want to reinvest it back into the business to actually grow the business. You want to reinvest it back into the business. And then you can take some out here and put it in the cash pot. For me, I only pay myself enough to cover my living expenses and show income. This is really important because if you are an entrepreneur and you're ready to step out and you leave the traditional workforce, and you want to buy a home 3 years or 4 years down the line, they want to see that you actually have paid yourself just like an employer would, right? If they're going to consider giving you a mortgage for a multifamily home or for a single family home. So you still want to pay yourself out of your business. If your business can't pay you, then it's likely not profitable, okay? You need to account for your time in your business's expenses. That's the way you know if it's truly profitable or not. Okay. So in order to start your business, where's that money going to come from? It's going to come from your sacred stash. It's going to come from your sacred stash. Okay. So this is an investment. Your business is an investment that you are holding money for in your sacred stash to start. Now, not every business has the same kind of startup costs. Some businesses can be started with a domain name and a website for like $10. Some businesses require overhead. You need to buy inventory of t-shirts or goods, or you need to get some sort of certification in order to do your consulting or coaching or whatever, right? So different businesses have different costs or variables for how much it costs to start up. Where's that money going to come from? It's going to come from your sacred stash. You see this startup cost. Now, when your business is profitable, you don't want to invest every dollar back into the business. You can't, or you don't have to. You can actually take money out of your business and put it back into your sacred stash for other investments that are not active, for future passive investments, because your business initially is actually going to be active. You'll be self-employed initially. Self-employment is not true entrepreneurship yet. In fact, a lot of people get stuck at self-employment. Right? Most businesses, I think about 72% of businesses get stuck as self-employment. They're sole proprietorships and they never grow to actually true entrepreneurship. So you can take an owner's draw. And this is how I bought my real estate. My business was making money. At the end of the year, I didn't know how to reinvest all of that money back into the business. So I would do an owner's draw, put that in the sacred stash account, and then I would invest that into real estate. So at this moment in time, I actually have 4 pieces of property. I have a 3-family home in New York. I have 2 duplexes in New Orleans, and I have a duplex in Oakland, California. So essentially, I was making active income in my business, and then I took an owner's draw. I put that in the sacred stash in order to channel some of that money into passive income streams. And so this is how you do it. And what you want to do is you want to run as many expenses as you can through your business as you legally can. All right, I'm in alignment with the law, but you want to run as many expenses through your business because what does that do? It actually reduces your profit, which reduces your tax liability. Remember, a business gets taxed on its income. Revenues minus expenses equals income. Business gets taxed here. An individual gets taxed on their salary. Okay, so you want to run as many expenses as you possibly can through your business, and this is really, really key. So finally, there is your passive stream number 4. And if you remember up in the upper right, financial freedom is when your passive stream number 4 from multifamily homes, equity, and other assets is actually greater than 1 month of living expenses or your operating expenses. And that is right here. And so, for example, that's how I was able to reach financial freedom at the age of 35, because my passive streams from the 4 properties that I just mentioned actually surpassed my monthly cost of living. And therefore, I am financially free. Even if I just stop deciding to do my business, my business is my primary stream and it's my active stream here. Even if I stop, my passive income would actually meet all of my living expenses. And that's going to continue to happen like clockwork every single month. Okay, so you take money from your sacred stash and then you actually invest in assets. You buy assets. You can build assets. That's what active stream is. But you can also buy assets in equity in companies or in real estate, etc. And then that asset pays you back in rent, dividends, and capital gains, which you can go put back into your sacred stash and look and wait for the next best deal. Okay. Now, one of the key things to becoming financially free because of this operating expense is actually to get your housing expense off of your plate, right? And the best way to do that is to not buy a single family home first. A lot of people think that a single family home is an asset, but it's not. An asset is something that puts money into your pocket. A single family home, even after the mortgage is paid, will actually continue to take money out of your pocket in terms of property taxes, insurance, and it's now a 30-year-old home. So there's going to be all kinds of maintenance. So a single family home is not an asset. Okay, so the easiest way, one of the fastest paths to becoming free is actually to buy a multifamily home first, where you live in one of the 3 units or one of the 2 units, and the tenant or tenants are actually paying the mortgage, which allows you to live for free, which takes your housing expense off of your plate, which reduces your operating expense and makes it easier for you to make sure that your passive streams are actually greater than your monthly operating expenses or your living expenses. So this is the cash flow framework. This is how I automate and think about my finances. I have accounts in California, New Orleans, and at a national bank. But this is how I organize it all and automate it, so much so that I have money always going to my sacred stash. My emergency fund is full, and I still have a fund for enjoyment for things that I know is going to be money out the door that's never going to come back. But at this moment in time, and actually I could probably never go back unless I make a mistake or make a poor decision, my passive income, even if my multifamily homes were to depreciate, the rent is still coming in. This is why I don't buy homes based on appreciation potential. I buy them based on cash flow, because even if the market were to go down, the rents would still be where they are. And my financial freedom stage would not change whatsoever. So this is how I think about my money. I hope that this has helped you. Let me know, give me some feedback. If you have any ideas or ways to improve that, I'm open. And there's more at cashflowframework.com if you want to go deeper. So thanks so much.